In the history of Cartoon Network, I think that Young Justice is the best cartoon that they ever put out. The Emmy Award-winning show is about the sidekicks of the DC heroes of the Justice League. I'm going to go through the show and talk about what I enjoyed and what I didn't enjoy, some of the characters, my favorite episodes, and so on. Now, there may be some spoilers in here, but I'll give you a warning before I say anything. So let's get started. One of the things that I love about the show is how it follows its predecessor, Justice League, the show from the early 2000s, which was part of the DC animated universe created by Bruce Timm. I think that all of Bruce Timm's animated universe was outstanding, but I think Young Justice took those ideas and expanded on them and made them better. A lot of the designs of the characters are the same, but changed a tiny bit just enough to make them their own, still enough to remind us of the show that we all loved. Even the Watchtower in space is similar to the one from the Justice League, but they put a unique spin on it, making it less like a satellite and more earthy. It even has trees inside, which I thought was pretty cool. But it's not like they're ripping Bruce Timm's version off. They clearly make note to the fact that they used the ideas from Timm's show. They even used the logo that Bruce Timm's universe used for their Justice League show to represent the Justice League in Young Justice, when they could have used like 100 other logos that have been made for the Justice League. So they're clearly showing that they were inspired by this original show. And I feel like Young Justice is sort of like a sequel series to the original Justice League show. As I said before, the show won an Emmy after its first season for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Animation. So it's not only a Cartoon Network hit, but it's a respected show as well. In 5 years, Bruce Timm's Justice League didn't win any awards, and in just 1 year, Young Justice won. I find Young Justice to be more entertaining than Bruce Timm's Justice League, and I think a big contributor to that is that the characters were handled better. Not only did they choose lesser known characters such as Aqualad, Superboy, Miss Martian, and Artemis, but they also expanded on characters that we've seen in animation before, such as Dick Grayson as Robin and Wally West as Kid Flash. I find it interesting that they chose to use Wally West as Kid Flash and chose Barry Allen to be the real Flash, because in the original Justice League show, they used Wally West as the main Flash. The way they're able to balance all of the characters so well and equally divide the screen time for each of them is incredible, and each backstory is complicated and interesting. So the fact that they have so many characters and are able to dive deep into each one of their origins shows how well the show is written. I think that's something that Bruce Timm's animated universe lacked. The only backstories they really dive into are Batman and Superman. That's only because they had a whole TV series to set the groundwork. Sure, they go a little bit into Hawkgirl, which I found very interesting, but it's nothing like they go into each Young Justice character. And they've almost no backstory for the rest of the team in the original Justice League, especially for the Flash, who is my favorite character of the show. The writing in Young Justice, in my opinion, is better because they're able to convey so much more about the characters in one season than Justice League could in multiple seasons. We've seen Dick Grayson many times throughout animation through the years. He was in Batman the Animated Series, Teen Titans, and in a couple of movies, but I think that the Young Justice Dick is my favorite of them all. He's voiced by Jesse McCartney, who I would never have guessed would be involved in a show like this, but he does a really great job. The character development for Dick is really well done. When he first joins the team, he's desperate to be the leader, but because he's too young, he steps aside and lets Aqualad become the leader.
You should lead us, Calder. You're the only one who can.
Then there's some foreshadowing for Season 2, which I thought was really interesting.
You were born to lead this team. Maybe not now, but soon.
There was one episode in Season 1 called Performance, where the team goes undercover at the circus where Dick grew up. It shows a powerful scene where he walks alone in the snow and sees a poster of the Flying Graysons, which was his act with his parents before they died and he became Robin. I found Wally to be one of my favorite characters. Just like in the original Justice League show, he's a joke-cracking wise guy. The Young Justice added him being a wannabe ladies man, which leads to some very funny lines.
Careful, Superboy, they're hot.
Not as hot as you, babe.
Thanks, Wally. That's, sweet.
Not as sweet as you, sugar.
Oh, crow.
Aqualad, or Calder's character, was responsible and the stone-faced leader. This made one episode called Downtime very interesting, because you see a different, more vulnerable side to Calder when it comes to the love of his life. Superboy is handled very well, I thought. He's grown in a lab, and when he's released, he's just an angry brute. But throughout Season 1, he learns to control his anger, and learns how to interact with others, and grows a personality. They stayed true to the comics for his character. This was the first time, to my knowledge, that he ever appeared in any show or movies besides Smallville. His look is pretty much exactly the same as the comics, and I stayed true to the history of how he was cloned, and how he is only half Kryptonian. I also really liked his relationship with Superman, who constantly turns his back on him. Now, Miss Martian, or Megan, or McGann, or whatever, was my least favorite character of the show. This is one of the only things that I didn't like about the show. I just found her to be annoying, and her catchphrase was the worst.
Hello, Megan.
Her backstory was just so out there. I liked the whole green and white Martian thing that they talked about. She was criticized on Mars for being a white Martian, and most of the population was green like the Martian Manhunter. It symbolizes the problems we have in the real world with racism, and it gives it a unique twist. But another part of her backstory that I didn't like is how she's impersonating a TV character that she loves, who goes by the name Megan and has a boyfriend named Connor, which is the name she gave to Superboy, who she was dating. We find out that she copied everything about the TV character, including her catchphrase. I just found the whole thing to be annoying. Even her relationship with Superboy was dull. And I love Superboy, I just hate him with her. So, not a fan of Miss Martian. Artemis. She was a great character. Her backstory was probably done better than any of them. Now, here's a spoiler, so if you don't want to learn about Artemis' backstory, skip ahead a little bit. We find out that she's the daughter of Huntress, who we met in the original Justice League series. Then we find out that Jade and Sportsmaster, who are two of the recurring villains in the show, are Artemis' sister and father. So she's desperately trying to hide her past from the team, and sometimes even throws the missions, just so they won't find out about her background.
I wonder if your position's secure enough to survive them learning everything I know. Didn't think so.
Another great part of Artemis' character is her relationship with Wally. Their relationship is beautifully written, especially for a cartoon. They hate each other in the beginning, but slowly start to care for one another. I think it's much better written than Connor and Megan. Speedy, or Roy Harper, is also another great character. He isn't officially part of the team because he stormed out in the first episode because he thought that they were treating them like sidekicks. But he makes multiple appearances, and we see him change his name to Red Arrow.
Well, for starters, he doesn't go by Speedy anymore. Call me Red Arrow.
I really liked Roy because he was a loose cannon, which made him really interesting to watch. Speedy, of course, is a very controversial character in the comics due to his addiction to heroin. I kinda wish they could have expanded on that, but I understand why they didn't, because the show is aimed at kids. Although they did have something like an addiction with Superboy. When he gets patches, they make him have all of the powers of a Kryptonian instead of just half of them. He goes back to Luthor, practically begging him for more. This is another example of how this show takes real life situations and adapts them to fit into this alternate world. It shows the struggle that people have with drug addiction. There are many more characters from the Justice League like Batman, Superman, Green Arrow, Flash, Aquaman, Black Canary, Red Tornado, Martian Manhunter, Captain Marvel, and so on. They have appearances of almost every Justice League member you can think of, even though all of them don't have lines. I was kind of disappointed that Kevin Conroy wasn't the voice of Batman, because he's done it for so many shows and movies, and he really is the animated Batman. But I'm actually pleased with the actor they chose, Bruce Greenwood. He did, in my opinion, the best Batman other than Conroy.
Cadmus will be investigated. All 52 levels. But let's make one thing clear. End results aside, we are not happy. You will not be doing this again.
The show has some incredible action scenes, and it's not just mindless action, but it's action that complements the story. They might be holding somebody off while the others go on to complete the mission, and you never know this until the heroes reveal it. It's spectacular writing, and is far better than most animated shows. They're very complicated and dynamic plots, with surprises and plot twists all over. The villains were handled very well too. The main villains are the organization called the Light. We don't know who they are, and they slowly start to reveal themselves throughout Season 1. Pretty much everything that the team fights is happening because of the Light. The Injustice League also made an appearance. It included the Joker, whose voice actor was just awful. He was voiced by Brent Spiner, and he is a million miles away from Mark Hamill, who played the Joker in Bruce Timm's animated universe. Reiner's Joker just didn't seem like the Joker. It was an awkward and fake performance in my opinion.
Wonder Boy, you are mine.
Some other villains who I really liked that I already mentioned were Sportsmaster and Jade. Jade is considered bad and fools around with her sister a lot, but she also has a soft spot for Artemis, which we see a couple times.
Okay, fine, we're sisters. I don't actually want you dead.
Now, my favorite episodes of Season 1. Failsafe is a very memorable one. The sidekicks see all of the League get killed, so they're forced to step up and save the day.
We are Earth's heroes now.
It's really interesting how it affects each individual. Now here's a spoiler, so skip ahead a little bit if you don't want to know what happens in the episode. In the end, it turns out that it was all in a training simulation gone wrong because Miss Martian's mind was making them think it was real. It scars each character so much that in the next episode, they all need therapy.
Hurting. Try traumatized. I finally become leader and wind up sending all of my friends to their deaths.
I thought this was a very unique twist because how often do you see the heroes in such a vulnerable position? It shows the lasting effects of what they do and makes it seem real, which gets you much more invested in the characters. Another episode I really enjoyed was called Misplaced. Clarion makes it so there are two universes, one with adults and one with the kids. So the team has to get all of the kids to safety. Here we see them interact with the babies and the young children, which shows a different side to Superboy and Wally. It's just another subtle thing that the writers threw in to make us more invested in the characters. Anyway, what makes this really interesting is that Captain Marvel, who's really a 10-year-old boy named Billy Batson, can change back and forth from an adult to kid, so he can go to both worlds and help them work together to fix the problem. Also in this episode, Zatanna becomes a permanent member of the League. She was also in a few episodes, but after this, it was official that she was on the team, which is cool. Another memorable episode is the season finale. Here, Vandal Savage takes control of the whole Justice League, so the team has to fight their mentors. It's a very interesting idea and was really entertaining. At the very end, we find out that 6 members of the team went missing for 16 hours and have no memory of what they did. It was a very good ending to the first season and left you on a cliffhanger.
16 hours. What did we do?
Season 2. This season was titled Young Justice Invasion. From the title, you could probably guess this season focuses on aliens. The season takes place 5 years after the first season. Everything has changed. Dick has taken on the mantle of Nightwing and is the new leader of the team, and there are many new members on it. The thing that I was most excited about was seeing the Bat family, which is my favorite part of all of comic books. You have Dick as Nightwing, the new Robin, Tim Drake, and Barbara Gordon as Batgirl. They even briefly mentioned Jason Todd, who's dead at this point in time. I was happy to see that they stayed true to the comics for the new Robin, Tim. It's a substantial update from Bruce Timm's Tim Drake. The DC animated universe's Tim Drake was a mix between Tim and Jason, so I'm glad that we finally got a character that was 100% Tim on the screen. I really love seeing Dick and Tim interact.
Tim, you'll be running Gamma.
Because it's Gamma and you're not expecting trouble? Or because we're stretched thin and you have no choice?
Just don't die, okay?
There are many other new characters as well, most notably Blue Beetle, who plays a big part in the whole season. He's a scarab attached to his back that gives him armor and weapons, along with the scarab talking to him. We find out later that the aliens that invade Earth, called the Reach, created this technology, and eventually take Blue Beetle's scarab over, which makes him become their slave. It's interesting how they portray the interaction between him and the Scarab. In the first couple episodes, we just hear Blue Beetle talking to himself, as if we were the other heroes on the team.
Blue's an odd little fish, isn't he?
Then later, we hear the conversations between him and the Scarab. We hear the Scarab try to give him destructive advice, and see how Blue Beetle struggles with having the Scarab in his head. Then when the Reach is taking control of the Scarab, we hear Blue Beetle talking to the Scarab, even though none of the heroes can hear him.
Tell me our destination.
And I'll make your deaths painless. Oh yeah, that scared him.
We have many new sidekicks of the main heroes of the Justice League, such as Wonder Girl for Wonder Woman, Lagoon Boy for Aquaman's new protege, and I mentioned Batgirl and Robin earlier for Batman. We also have some completely new heroes like Bumblebee, Guardian, and Beast Boy. We actually saw Beast Boy in Season 1, only he was still Garfield Logan. Then McGann gave him some of her blood to save him, which gave him the power to shapeshift into different animals. When I think of Beast Boy, I immediately think of the show The Teen Titans from the early 2000s. I actually prefer the Teen Titans version by far. I didn't really like the approach they took in Young Justice, but maybe that's just because he reminds me so much of my least favorite character, McGann. They even try to give him a catchphrase like McGann, which I wasn't much a fan of.
Noted.
One thing I wish they could have done was show the relationship and the friendship between Tim Drake and Superboy. In the comics, they're as close as Wally and Dick. They really didn't have much interaction at all, which was kind of disappointing. The original characters from Season 1 have changed quite a bit. As I said before, Dick is now Nightwing and the leader of the team. Wally and Artemis both retired and spend a quiet life together, although that doesn't last long. Aqualad is now working next to his birth father, Manta, and is now bad. And now Connor and McGann are broken up and are still on the team. Then we have Red Arrow. We found out at the end of Season 1 that he was a clone of the real Speedy, and that Vandal Savage and Lex Luthor used him to turn the Justice League into slaves of the light. Now in Season 2, he's a mess and broken down after searching tirelessly for the real Speedy for 5 years.
I needed to find Speedy, the real Roy Harper. A search like that is expensive, especially when the rest of you have all given up.
Eventually they find the real Speedy, and he becomes the coolest and most badass character ever.
Speedy died 8 years ago. But I kinda like the sound of Arsenal.
Arsenal. When they found him, he's missing an arm because they used it to clone the other Roy Harper. So when they find him, he gets a robotic arm that's full of weapons. And my favorite new character of Season 2 by far was Impulse, or Bart Allen. He comes from the future and is Barry Allen, the current Flash's grandson. He's voiced by one of my favorite voice actors named Jason Marsden. He can deliver any line perfectly.
Limbo time!
I love that. One thing I love is the future term he always uses.
That's so Crash!
Or if something is bad, he says,
I'm totally feeling the mode.
Now, the plot of Season 2. They find out that the Justice League went crazy, destroying and killing during those missing 16 hours. So they go stand trial off in the galaxy, while the aliens, the Reach, come to Earth and try to take over, leaving the Young Justice team to deal with them. Throughout the season, they introduce many DC cameos, like Deathstroke, Static, Black Beetle, Green Beetle, Mongol. They even introduced the War World, which is a ship the size of a planet that was made for destroying. I was really excited about seeing Static because I loved the original show, which was part of Bruce Timm's animated universe. It didn't really change a thing about his character, which I was really happy about, because he was literally perfect in his own show. Now, my favorite episode of Season 2. Bloodlines was an amazing episode. This is where Impulse makes his first appearance. We see all 4 of the Flashes team up. Barry, Wally, Bart, and even see Jay Garrick, the Golden Age Flash, suit up. It was really awesome to watch and see them fight side by side. Another great episode was the mid-season finale called Depths. The opening draws you in so well. It was so well written and so well placed. Just watch.
What could go wrong?
"28, 29, 30. She's dead.
The episode only gets better from there. Because Nightwing is the leader, he doesn't get to go out on the field, but has to stay behind and give orders. So when we finally see him get some action, it was well worth the wait. At the end of the episode, we get the ultimate cliffhanger. Now here's a spoiler, so skip ahead if you don't want to hear. We find out that Aqualad has been on an undercover mission infiltrating the light. From the opening, you see that Artemis is dead, and we find out that Aqualad killed her. But as it turns out, they faked her death. Then she goes undercover disguised as Tigress, Aqualad's right-hand man. What a cliffhanger. The final episode of the series was called Endgame. I can't really tell you what happens without spoiling the whole season, so I'm just going to talk about one thing that you can't skip over. So another spoiler alert. I was shocked when this happened. Wally dies. The death was beautifully written and really pulls on your heartstrings.
Kid? Just tell them. Okay?
Artemis's reaction is what gets you.
Wait! Where's Wally?
Artemis. You wanted me to tell you.
No.
He loved you.
Then when she goes to Wally's parents' house, it's just so sad. The writers did an incredible job on that whole sequence. In my opinion, it's one of the saddest deaths I've ever seen. And I think that a big part of that is contributed by the writing throughout the whole series. The writers got us emotionally invested in Wally's character from the very first episode.
You, me, Wally, we founded this team. Without him...
So now that I've ranted about that, let's talk about how the show got cancelled. People petitioned, people begged to have it come back, but it's been about a year and still nothing. It's a shame too. Season 3 had so much potential. The thing that I want to see most is how Artemis deals with Wally's death. Then there's Bart taking Wally's place as Kid Flash. There's Lex Luthor who takes over the Senate. Darkseid is introduced and teams up with Vandal Savage, who has the War World. Static finally joins the team. The team is finally allowed to operate out of the Watchtower. Aqualad is the leader again, and I'm really interested to see how Dick deals with his best friend's death, while he takes a leave of absence from the team to grieve. Season 3 has so much potential, but unfortunately we won't get to see any of that. But to be honest, I'm glad we got these 2 seasons of the show. They were fantastic and so great to watch. Everyone involved did an outstanding job. I'm gonna miss this show a lot. So thank you for watching my review, and I hope you enjoyed.
It's Big Crash!